Embark on a bit of a battle, I think. I have been working hard to try and convince all of you, my peers, over the last few years that accessibility is important. And I think those battles, they were hard fought, but maybe we're winning that war. I think a lot of people in the room we've partnered with over the years, and we've done some really great things together. And I think generally the field is open to accessibility now as something we agree we should be doing at least. But today, I'm now embarking on a new campaign, so to speak. I'm going to try and convince you all of something that I think for a little while might be a losing battle. It will be hard. I'm a tool maker, so I make tools. So I think of myself like I'm building a hammer so carpenters can build houses, right? I'm an engineer at heart. Sometimes I talk to people about how in an ancient mythical story I might be the blacksmith who forges a sword, but I don't slay the dragon. The champion or the main character of the story does. And so many people in the room here, you're the main characters, and I want you on my side, because I want you to all convince your tool makers, and maybe there are some other smiths in the room, so to speak. I want to convince you today that this is important, and we need to do it, and our field is behind. So, let's see if this argument works. And on accessibility, I think the conversation is largely about catching up, and has been about catching up. So today, I'll be talking about moving forward towards something down the road. And to just build on my credentials here, I want, as part of convincing you all, I'm not bragging, I just want you all to believe that I know what I'm talking about. So my work has influenced my projects like Chartability, Data Navigator, and others, has influenced over 15 policy organizations and governments worldwide. I've contributed to global standards. My work is used in over 110 tech news, nonprofit, community groups all over the world. My stuff is taught in undergrad and grad courses everywhere. So people have listened to me in the past, so I hope all of you do today. So here's a cool dashboard I made. I love this dashboard. I worked really hard on it. It's so great. I see a lot of squinting in the room. Not a good start to my argument. Maybe it's hard to read. I guess if I use like a responsive layout, is it easier to read here in the room? Lots of blank faces. I don't think it's easy to read yet. What can I do to make this better? Maybe that's better? We are using more of the space now, right? It's responsive. That's good design. Okay, maybe we should just bump up the text size. Is this readable yet? Okay, obviously not. I'm being absurd. I'm using a mobile phone that's pixel correct to try and present a dashboard to a room of people. Obviously the dashboard is like wide format. I built it on my computer for desktop viewing. Okay, so this is what it looks like. It looks great on my computer. Still doesn't look very good in the room though. All of you sitting far away probably can't really read the text. Again, maybe I should just bump up the text. Is this better? Am I making a presentation ready dashboard now? Are we even ready to start talking about this? Obviously, the dashboard doesn't matter. It's an example dashboard. But I want to talk about how our data visualizations are hard-baked. We still do this as a field. We still design for one device, one user, one way of doing things. And that doesn't work. We need to do something else. So this idea is a situational barrier. We get this language from accessibility. The situational barrier is this idea that some context, environment, or conditions, including our use of technology, produces a barrier in whatever it is we're trying to do. So disability is very closely related to situational barriers. It's just that the barrier produces disability in our ability to use a thing. So this, if I were to try and actually hold my mobile phone up and give a presentation, would be an absurd situational barrier. You couldn't see my phone if I were to present. That's why we use a big screen, why we use wide format, why we have big text, why we like to annotate as we talk. All of these things are helping our audience overcome situational barriers. We do this in our design all the time, but we're still pretty hard-baked when we make data visualizations. And this device, I think, in general, our field, we haven't gotten good at even designing for mobile. So again, it's going to be a losing battle to convince you all. Not only should we be doing catch-up work, but actually I think if we start thinking about more flexible visualizations, we can lead into a better future too. On situational barriers, Microsoft has some diagrams that I think are very useful. I use in my accessibility talks. This is from Inclusive Design 101, their course. It's open, it's free, available to everybody. It's good content. The idea here is some people have a permanent disability. So in this case, this is a diagram of a person who's blind. They have a seeing eye dog and a cane. And then some people may temporarily have a disability. So actually cataracts are the #1 source of blindness worldwide, and it is preventable with simple healthcare interventions. So there is actually an intersection between access to affordable healthcare and blindness. And so cataracts and cataract-related blindness is largely preventable and fixable. And then, of course, there's situational barriers. So this is their materials, what they use. And I like to think that the most common form of situational barrier that our field produces are these hard-baked designs. These just really painfully inflexible things we make. So this concept here that Microsoft talks about is that if we design for the left side of the column for people who are permanently disabled, there's this downstream effect of good. Inclusive design, design for one, extend to all, and everybody all the time in our lives, right? We take advantage of accessible technology. In fact, I think we often don't appreciate accessible technology because it's so invisible, because the design is so ubiquitous, it's so well done. If you go outside on a bright day and you look at your mobile phone, you're taking advantage of accessible technology. Your mobile phone's contrast automatically brightens for you. If you really want to know what it's like to use your mobile phone without that, turn the automatic contrast adjustment off and try going between somewhere dark and somewhere bright. You'll realize, oh, accessible technology is pretty awesome. It helps the stuff that is designed, like automatic contrast on the left for people with permanent disabilities, benefits everybody who faces situational barriers. I also want to argue that there's an upstream negative effect. If we design inflexible visualizations that produce situational barriers for everybody, it gets even worse for people who have permanent disabilities interacting with technology. So why should our visualizations even be one size fits all? Why do we do this as a field? I think that it's sort of just a practice we've inherited. The model of designing is I get thing, I make thing, I give you thing. That's the relationship. You use it. It doesn't have to work that way. We can have smarter ways of doing things. You can give people options. They can choose. Or, in using the metaphor of clothing, if you want to go to an important event, you get tailored outfits. So it's not just that you have multiple choices, small, medium, large, in your t-shirts, but that you can go and get perfectly fitted clothing and then go to a wedding or whatever. We can do this with our data visualizations too. It's actually easier to do this with software than it is with stuff like materials and clothing. So that is my pitch. Visualization software isn't soft enough. We should be thinking of ways that we can enable our end users to tailor their own experiences. We should be giving them more choices. I want to argue that good visualization isn't hard-baked, which means most of everything we've made for the past X years isn't good yet. Good visualization should be softerware. It should be responsive, and it should be malleable. Up until now, I've only really talked about responsiveness, so I'm going to unpack that both here in a little bit. But I like to liken our materials, what we should be thinking of software as, to clay or Play-Doh. I like Amy Sessel's kind of, Play-Doh Viz stuff. You can still work it when it's in a soft format, and you aren't going to bake it yet. You pass it off and assume the end user can finish forming whatever their experience is to tailor their needs, And then they can bake the experience if they want. Design doesn't have to stop with the designer. So I really care about this idea of the right to repair. There's even some lawsuits going on with big tech companies that I won't name, where they're required now to actually keep windows for repairing certain devices for X number of years, because they would try and come out with a new product to get people to buy the new product and then say you're not allowed to repair this old product after 2 years. So the right to repair matters. I love this story. This is an image of anarchist road repairers in Portland. This is from 2017. The story is really funny. Portland refused to fix potholes in the road, and so self-proclaimed anarchists went out and started repairing the road themselves, got all over the national news, and of course the city of Portland was like, okay, it's actually unsafe you're doing this. We will fix our roads. And then they did a bunch of efforts to actually fill a bunch of potholes throughout the city. But thinking about our software interfaces, who gets to repair those when they're inaccessible, when they don't work, when they're broken? Well, the business owners, the software engineers. It doesn't have to be that way, though. We could give people tools they need to tailor their own experiences with data visualizations. If you think in a work context, we often personalize our own devices too, right? We make our workstations work for us. Our chairs, we adjust to where we want to be seated. Our software can do that too. The way we design visualizations should be responsive and malleable. And by responsive, I mean they should be automatic and adjust as much as possible. Automatic contrast on our phone when we go inside and outside. They should adjust layouts based on the devices. But responsiveness isn't enough, because our visualizations maybe can detect, oh, this is a wide format. Here's how we should lay things out. But responsiveness doesn't know, well, it's a wide format and I'm in a room presenting to people. So you really want something sort of additional in there as well, some extra level of control for people. And what does malleability really look like then, if we talk about malleability? How do we give people the power to change their visualizations? I think the step one, let them personalize. That's the first space of exploration, I think, is we need to discover what people actually care about. What do they want to change in their interfaces? And I am a researcher. I'm a PhD student right now. I am, of course, an engineer, toolmaker at heart. But I do research with people. And we did a study. I teamed up with HighCharts, the folks at HighSoft, and we researched with people with disabilities, what do you actually want to change with data visualization dashboards? What would you care? We gave them a bunch of options so we could learn what are sort of the most important levers that people would want to pull. And we had different scenarios, like we're going to pretend you're going to be working. So you're going to visit this dashboard every day. Does that change if you were to just visit a website with a chart? And what sort of other things would you want if you had this control? Like, do you want your settings to persist across all charts you ever encounter? If you change settings on a line chart, do you want all line charts to fit that, or just this line chart? It was a great study. We do have a paper on it under review, but you could read that later. Personalization isn't new, right? This is not a new concept. Video games, especially the award-winning ones for accessibility, almost all of them, have a ton of personalization settings. If you think about it, you're going to sit down, you're going to play a game, you paid $60, $80 for a video game. Yeah, it makes sense. You would want to kind of set it up so that it's fun to play, it's usable. But also, for almost as long as we've had personal computing, we've been able to personalize our computers. And so Apple's accessibility motto is make it yours. That's about personalization. So this isn't new. Hopefully I'm not saying like, oh, wow, personalization, never heard of that before. But I think for visualization, we don't do this. So it's an old concept applied to our existing work. So what about this visualization do you think people would want to change? This is a Sankey diagram. And when I run a study, when we ran our study, I explain to people who cannot see and some people who have never had sight, so some people are congenitally blind, I explain this to them like, oh, well, a Sankey diagram, it's kind of like, imagine a bunch of noodles on your table, they move from left to right. Some noodles are thick, like lasagna noodles, and those ones carry a lot of information from the left side of the noodle to the right side. It's about flow. Some are really thin, like angel hair, etc. And sometimes I'll use a metaphor like pipes or something else. But this visualization, what could be a barrier? According to standards, which my project Chartability is all about standards. That's like this really successful project I've had that helps people catch accessibility barriers. If you were to evaluate this according to standards, it's pretty good. But actually, I think design-wise, there's a lot of barriers still here. For example, in this room, if I were to use this, Sankey, I think the font size is too small. So in this context, I think the font size is a barrier. And also for a lot of people, the font size is still too small, even if this was on like their personal computer. Of course, black text on a light background, so light mode, is also a barrier for a lot of people with photosensitivity especially. And textures plus colors, this is this thing we often talk about in accessibility, like, oh, you need to add patterns to every color, so there's redundant encoding for people with color vision deficiency, other low vision issues. Actually, a lot of people, though, have trouble with textures and colors together. It creates a lot of visual complexity. And then, of course, lastly, I don't mention noodles at all in the explanation of what a Sankey diagram is, so maybe the explanation isn't good enough. And you might think like, okay, if you're still thinking like a standard non-softerware designer, you might think, well, we can fix this stuff. Let's bump up the text size and get rid of all that visual complexity. Make it minimalist, put it on a dark background for people. Let's add a better description in here. Yeah, this is it. We did it. We listened to users. We made a perfect design. Unfortunately, of course, this also has accessibility issues. This is also going to have barriers for some people. This is called access friction. The idea that some things that make something accessible for somebody actually produce barriers for other people. This is a problem in design that you cannot resolve with one design. There's no such thing as a single perfect data visualization design. There isn't. Let that exit your brain. It doesn't exist. One design cannot fit all people. I know that's a spicy idea for some of you. A lot of our work is about trying to make really good designs that go on and win awards at the IIB, right? And that's great. You're designing for your peers, so they hopefully pick you and you win awards. But when you design really for a broad group of people, especially the public, you cannot have a single design that is actually perfect. So in our study, we explored how do different people with disabilities personalize. We had two groups of people who are blind, so classified as legally blind, and people who are low vision. It's also a classification. They have some sight to some degree. It's a diagnostic kind of space of vision. People with glasses ordinarily are not considered low vision. It's a category right before blind on that spectrum. So interestingly, we saw in our study, folks with low vision immediately encountered access frictions in the designs they chose that were best for themselves. Every person who was low vision wanted bigger text size, all of them. So you might think, okay, in every design we make, maybe we should have bigger text size. Sure. Quickly diverged. One person in the study loved redundant encoding. Nobody else did. Also, two people, the exact same medical condition, progressive nyctalopia, which is night blindness, one of them literally said, oh, this has dark mode? Amazing. I love dark mode. Anytime I can turn it on, I use dark mode. They had a system setting for dark mode also that they also turned on, and they were like, oh, this works with my system stuff. Love it. Another person, we asked them about dark mode. We asked everybody about all of our preferences. And they said, oh, dark mode? Anytime there's dark mode and I can't turn it off, I cannot use that website. So that's access friction. You can't have a single design that helps them both. And so, okay, we did this study. We added a preference menu. Is that it? Is that what we need to do as a field? We're just going to slap a preference menu on every single chart we put out there into the world? No, we don't want to do that, and I don't want you to do that. Please don't actually do that. It's terrible. This is actually the nightmare of modern web overlays. This is a practice that people do, and it is horrible. It's like personalization for evil. You take a really inaccessible website, it's bad, it's not good, and then you slap an overlay on it and say like, hey, fix our garbage. That's a bad design choice, and honestly, it's extremely common now, because in an audit, you are technically providing a way for users to get access to a lot of things. So from an accessibility compliance standpoint, you might be able to weasel out of some lawsuits, is really what this business operates on. And even some people in our own field have asked me, like, hey, how do I make my website accessible? And I say, one thing you should not do, don't use overlays. They still do. They still use overlays. Some of you know who you are. I've emailed in follow-ups after I've seen your websites. But liken this to our own experiences. Isn't it painful every single time you go to a website? This is DVS. I'm picking on you, DVS. No, it's not really your fault. It's a ubiquitous thing, though, to say you go to a website and it's like, hey, how do you want us to deal with your data? I wish I could just set this once. Never use my data ever, and then every site I go to is smart enough to say, they've already said they don't ever want data to be used. We will just pick that by default. Wow, wouldn't that be cool? Because this is an overlay on basically every website nowadays when you're navigating, and I hate it. It's awful. We do this to people with disabilities also. There's this extra layer for accessibility, and I think it's a bad design choice. So here's my grand vision for softerware. This is really what I want to convince you all of. Hopefully, until now, you're all like, yeah, it would be cool if we had stuff like this. I don't know how to do it, but yeah, I'm sold. Somebody should build it. Good. All of you, remember, you're the main characters in the story. Go to your tool makers and say, I need a better hammer. I need a better sword. We have a new dragon, okay? We need to make our visualizations accessible by default. Don't give people garbage. I have this project Chartability. I've already talked about it. Look it up. Write it down and go and Google it. Tons of people use it. Literally informs policy, governance. It's in, we're contributing to global standards. It's a good project. Go look it up, okay? That's the bare minimum. Also, once we do our best, we try to make everything accessible by default. We do need to respect people's existing right to repair. People already are using system settings. What looks wrong about this chart? This is a scatter plot on a dark website background. The scatter plot, though, has a white background. Doesn't this look awful? This is what most data visualizations look like. If you go into your system settings on your device and say, I want to use high contrast dark. Well, this is a hard-baked PNG. It's not great. And so it's going to keep that white background. Not good. We should make better tools that listen to what people have already said they want. There's already preferences-based systems out there. We should just be listening to. And you can do this on the web, especially. You can adjust these settings. So here's 4 things. Just take a picture of this. Take this to your tool makers and say, hey, our charts need to listen to people's contrast settings. Our charts need to listen to people's redundant encoding settings. Our charts need to listen to people's font size settings. That one is especially important because it is the most common thing that people want to change with data visualizations. And then motion reduction is actually really important because you can get sued if somebody says, I don't want motion, and then they have a seizure or they have some kind of health event related to your data viz. Let people turn motion off. I know our field is, we love animation. I love animation. I got into visualization because of motion design. But we need to be able to allow people to turn this off in system settings, and our charts respect it. So we also need to make sure our visualizations are safe. One of the things we did in our study is we also interviewed people who were visualization developers and designers. And it turns out if you give users full control and full power, they can make really bad charts. So our system design, we need to be smart. We cannot give people completely unmediated control of data viz. It is not only possible to make visualizations that are useless, but also harmful, because we have plenty of perceptual studies that say if you just change the aspect ratio of a line chart, you can produce bias in interpreting that chart. So we need to put guardrails. We need to design constraints that are smart. We need good tool makers and good designers on this problem, because it's hard, actually, because this is just one example of changing aspect ratio or font size. Lastly, interdependence. This is a concept from disability justice that I love. We often talk about independence as this ideal for our use of technology, but in spaces where people are disabled, who live with disabilities, they live often in interdependent relationships. Yes, independence and interdependence. So I want our goals to the future to think of this. One thing that came out of our study that was really interesting is people started talking about, oh, well, it's cool, HighCharts has this, but I don't use HighCharts. I'm in Excel. And HighCharts is doing really good work. This is a screenshot from their R&D used with permission of their current designs for their preferences-based system and how it works, and also ingest system settings, et cetera. And it's awesome. People love this. But it doesn't work with stuff like Excel. It doesn't work with any other tool. That means, this is the real thing I want to convince you all, we need a concerted effort together as a field on what standards should be, what the future looks like, and how do our tools work with each other. We're not just competing. We need to be able to interoperate. And, of course, users themselves, not everybody wants to personalize. It's a lot of work to set stuff up. So somebody might have a bad experience with a chart. They don't even know how to fix their own bad experience. But somebody else, power users, love to customize their tech. One of the things that came out of our study is one power user was like, I actually love to share my settings with other people. They're so passionate about personalization. So if we want to design tools that are interdependent, we should let people share settings with other people, have profiles, have ways of connecting to others. This is good interdependent system design, but it requires cooperation from a field of tool makers, because then other people can benefit from their peers, from other people. All right, that's my grand vision. Hopefully I've convinced you we need to provide basic access, respect people's right to repair, need to ensure our designs are safe, have good guardrails and constraints, and support interdependence. Lastly, my provocation, I fooled some people into thinking I would talk about large language models today, and I had plenty to talk about that didn't touch large language models, so I'll just say this, hopefully spicy, encourages discussion. I don't think language models will save us from bad design, so I think there's a lot of potential to think about how we could use them towards good design, but I think we still need a lot of just really good tool making, system design, infrastructure work before we ever really try and involve language models in this. So that's my challenge to all of you, my invitation. Thank you.
He was wearing a lapel mic.
Oh, yeah.
So after the trial and error of yesterday, the way Q&A is going to work today is I'm going to stand at the podium, read online questions, and we will move the mic around the room. So Andy up here in the front has a question.
We've got one back here, too.
Oh, Shelly, hi.
Hi, Frank, and thanks for a very inspirational presentation. I have a question is like, so you encourage us to think about personalization for all those accessibility settings. Then what would you envision the future Q&A effort would be if all the users have different accessibility configurations?
Yeah, so actually testing the designs. Yeah, I think we should. I think it's a great question. I think in general we need to involve more people with disabilities in the Q&A work, and also maybe even in the design work as well. So yeah, short answer, involving people with disabilities. I think a lot of people, especially smaller orgs and groups and individuals, you don't have access to run a research kind of arc while you're doing product or development on something. You can actually still partner with people though, so don't lose hope in that. But yeah, ask real people with disabilities.
We can do another in-person question. We'll try to balance virtual and in-person.
Thank you. Great talk, Frank. Actually, I'm going to make you stand up and go back to a couple of slides. Is that okay?
Yeah.
I've got 2 questions on specific advice about preserving insights. So if you go back to the scatter plot first, the white PNG, what happens, so the advice I'd seek on here is what happens if I have a style guide which requires particular color, which then doesn't work on a dark background? So that's question 1. How do you deal with that? And then if you go to the monochrome Sankey's.
Let's see. Oh, the Sankey. Okay. This one.
Yeah, go forward one more slide. Right. So in this case, the color encoding is redundant, right? But it might not always be the case. So if the color encoding is vital,
yeah,
and somebody wants monochrome,
Yeah.
how do you design to sort of define where the limits of the insight the chart provides can't be overridden by changing accessibility, if that's the right wording?
Yeah, okay, short answer. Well, won't be a short answer. It's a good question. That is the challenge over the next few years, is to figure out where the smart guardrails should be. Where should we allow people to personalize? And we don't have answers to that yet. People, though, with disabilities already turn their stuff monochrome. So they're already going to do it. You can get extensions for your browser or for your computer that just turn the saturation super low on color. So they're going to do it. I do think it's better if we help guide them towards like a smarter way to do it. So on that one, that's my answer. Then the other one for this one, like the style guide question, I think style guides should mature, I think is my short answer. And I think that, yesterday they already talked about that. Like, how do you build a database style guide? Like, it's a living document, so keep it alive. Yeah, thank you, good question.
Thank you.
We have a question from Louisa online. Do you have any examples of software, not necessarily database software, that does interdependence or settings sharing well?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The modding community in VS Code and modding in video games. I think hugely rich communities where people do a deep dive into making the technology way better and then share that benefit with other people. Absolutely, that's interdependence. We've been doing that a long time. Super great inspiration there for how all that works too.
Nice.
Hi. Quick question. How do you measure the impact of personalization? Is that something that you do kind of intuitive, or is that something that you can measure your results? Like, how do you go about that?
Okay, so I'm a researcher, so measurement's important. I actually don't expect our field to approach everything like a researcher, though. So maybe the practical answer is twofold. One, follow whoever is doing really good validated work. There's nothing wrong with that. They're like high softs people, they probably know what they're doing. So just like follow that pattern at first to catch up. If you're doing something that's novel, like that hasn't been done before, you should probably do a study. You should test it with real people. And so that's, how do you measure that? That there are entire fields devoted to both a quantitative answer to that and a qualitative one. So hopefully you have a good researcher who is familiar with those kinds of methods. That's my short answer. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good question, though. We should be trying to actually make sure we have an impact.
I think with that, we're going to move on to our next speaker. But thank you so much, Frank.
Thank you.